This is part 2 of the hidden town, Black Hollow. If you've made it here, you've already started the story, and now we're continuing straight from where things left off. Just a quick note. This story is made for advanced English learners, so you don't need to understand every single word immediately. Just listen, follow the meaning from the context, and try to stay with the flow of the story. Black Hollow is not a normal place. And from this point on, things start to get even more unclear and a bit more dangerous. So take your time, listen carefully, and let the story unfold. All right, let's continue. It stores people who don't belong in the normal timeline. Noah stared at him. A timeline is the order of time, like past, present, and future. And for a moment, he didn't even know how to respond. Because that sentence didn't just sound strange, it sounded impossible. But deep down, Noah already knew one thing. Nothing about Black Hollow was normal anymore, and he had only seen the beginning. The abandoned structure fell silent, no footsteps, no voices, no movement outside, just silence. The kind of silence that makes you aware of every breath you take. It was the heavy kind of quiet that makes every small sound feel louder. Noah looked around the room again. The walls were old. The wood was cracked. The furniture looked worn with age. Whoever had used this place before was long gone. Finally, Noah looked back at the man. "Who are you?" The question came out quieter than he expected. The man studied him for a few seconds. Then he nodded. "My name is Ethan." That was it. No dramatic speech, no long explanation, just a name. Noah waited. He expected more. Ethan seemed to notice. "I've been here a long time," he added. "A very long time." Noah leaned forward slightly. "What does that mean?" Ethan looked toward the window. For a moment, he didn't answer. It was if he was thinking carefully before speaking. Outside, the wind brushed against the walls. The sound seemed louder in the darkness. Noah couldn't shake the feeling that something was still out there, watching. Ethan finally spoke. "Before I answer your questions, there's something you need to understand." Noah said nothing. He simply listened. At this point, listening felt safer than interrupting. Black Hollow wasn't built as a normal town, Ethan said. It was built as a refuge. A refuge is a safe place where people go when they need protection. Noah frowned. "A refuge? A refuge for who?" Noah asked. Ethan's expression darkened slightly. "For people who have nowhere else to go." That answer sounded simple, but it still did not explain much. Noah folded his arms. "I don't understand." Ethan nodded. "I know." For a moment, Noah thought about standing up and leaving, just walking out, ignoring everything, pretending none of this had happened. But the thought did not last. The photograph came back into his mind. The older version of himself, standing in Black Hollow, the empty streets behind him. No, that was not something he could ignore. Ethan walked toward an old cabinet in the corner of the room. The wood creaked as he opened it. Inside were stacks of papers, boxes, folders, and many old documents that had been thrown in there over time. Ethan picked up one of the folders. Dust rose into the air. The folder looked ancient. Its corners were worn, its pages yellowed, almost fragile. Fragile means easy to break. He placed the folder on the table. Noah looked down. Symbols covered every page. Rows and rows of them, none of them made sense. They looked completely impossible to read. "What am I looking at?" Noah asked. Ethan sat down across from him. "Records." "Records of what?" "People." Noah blinked. The answer felt too simple, almost suspiciously simple. The room seemed colder now, just enough for Noah to notice. A faint draft slipped through a crack somewhere in the old wall. A draft is a small flow of cold air, Outside, dark clouds drifted across the night sky. For a brief moment, silver moonlight poured through the window, washing over the room. Then the clouds swallowed it again. The darkness returned. The shadows looked deeper than before. Ethan studied Noah in silence. "You look overwhelmed." Noah let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "Overwhelmed? I think that's an understatement. An understatement is when something is described as less serious than it really is." Ethan gave a slow nod. "That's normal. Most people feel despair the first time they learn the truth. Despair means a very deep, deep feeling of hopelessness." Noah's eyes narrowed. "What truth?" The question came almost instantly. Ethan didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned toward the dark window. His reflection stared back at him. Something in his expression changed. The calm certainty disappeared. For the first time, Noah saw genuine concern. Not fear for himself, fear of what was coming. And somehow, that frightened Noah more than everything he had already seen. Because if Ethan was afraid, then maybe Noah should be too. Noah sat back in his chair. For the first time since arriving in Black Hollow, he felt truly uncertain. Not confused, not curious. Uncertain. The difference mattered. Confusion could be solved with answers. Uncertainty remained even after answers appeared. Now this is an interesting distinction. When you're confused, you simply don't have enough information. But uncertainty is different. Sometimes you have information, but it doesn't help you feel safer. In fact, it can make you feel even less certain about what's coming next. "What truth?" Noah asked again. Ethan looked down at the folder between them. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he opened it. Carefully, as though the pages inside were far more valuable than they appeared. Notice that word carefully. When characters handle something carefully, it usually tells us the object matters. It may contain information, memories, or secrets that cannot easily be replaced. The symbols continued for page after page. Some were small and precise. Others stretched across entire sheets. Many were connected by lines and circles. It looked less like a collection of records and more like a map of something Noah couldn't understand. And that's an important image. A map usually helps us understand where things are, but this map seems to do the opposite. It exists, but Noah cannot read it. Ethan turned several pages, then stopped. There. Noah leaned forward. At first, he didn't notice anything different. Then he saw it, a photograph. It had been tucked between two pages. Now tucked means placed carefully inside or between something. For example, you might tuck a note into a book or tuck a letter inside a folder. The picture showed a street, an ordinary street. The buildings looked old, the road was empty, the sky was grey, but something about it felt familiar. Noah stared longer. Then his stomach tightened. It wasn't just familiar. It was Black Hollow. That reaction tells us something. Sometimes recognition happens before understanding. Noah recognizes the place before he fully realizes why the photograph is important. The same street he had walked through earlier that day. The same buildings, the same signs, the same houses. Only there were no people, not a single one. The town looked abandoned, completely abandoned. Let's pause on that word, abandoned. If a place is abandoned, it has been left behind. Nobody lives there, nobody uses it, and often nobody cares for it anymore. That's a powerful image because Black Hollow is currently full of people. What happened? Noah asked. Ethan's eyes remained fixed on the photograph. Nothing. Noah frowned. What do you mean, nothing? It hasn't happened, and that answer changes everything. Ethan isn't describing the past. He's suggesting this image belongs to a future that hasn't arrived yet. The room fell silent. Noah looked back at the picture, then at Ethan, then at the picture again. You mean this is the future? Ethan didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, it's one possibility. The phrase one possibility is very important. A possibility is something that could happen, but isn't guaranteed. It's different from a certainty. Noah felt a chill move through him. One possibility. The words sounded harmless, but they weren't, because if one future existed, then others might exist too. This is where Noah's thinking starts expanding. One future is frightening enough. Multiple futures create an entirely different problem. How many possibilities are there? Noah asked quietly. Ethan gave a small laugh. Not an amused laugh, a tired one. More than anyone can count. And notice the difference between those two laughs. Not every laugh means happiness. People laugh when they're nervous, exhausted, uncomfortable, or overwhelmed. Outside, the wind picked up again. The old walls creaked softly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Noah studied the photograph. The longer he looked at it, the more details he noticed. This happens in real life too. The longer we examine something, the more information we begin to see. A broken window, a fallen street sign, an empty bicycle lying on its side, small signs of a place that had been left behind, as if everyone had disappeared without warning. And these details matter because they tell a story without using people. The environment itself is giving clues. His eyes moved to the edge of the photograph. Something caught his attention. A figure, barely visible, standing near the end of the street. Now, barely visible means you can see it, but only just. It's almost hidden from view. Noah leaned closer. The figure was blurred, distant, almost hidden. But it was there. Someone was standing alone, watching. The word blurred means unclear or out of focus. Think of a photograph where the details are difficult to make out. Ethan. The man looked up. Who's that? Ethan followed his gaze. The moment he saw what Noah was pointing at, his expression changed. Only slightly, but enough. Sometimes very small reactions reveal more than dramatic ones. Ethan's change is tiny, but Noah noticed it immediately. I don't know. Noah immediately knew that wasn't true. Ethan knew something. Maybe not everything, but something. This is a common moment in mysteries. One character says very little, but their behavior suggests a much larger truth. You do know. Ethan remained silent. The silence stretched. Finally he sighed. I know what it represents. Now that's interesting. He doesn't say he knows who it is. He says he knows what it represents. What does it represent? Ethan looked toward the window again. The observer. The name hung in the air. Cold. Uncomfortable. Strange. Giving something a name immediately makes it feel more real. Before this moment, it was only a figure in a photograph. Noah had never heard it before, but somehow it felt familiar. Like hearing a word from a forgotten dream. The observer? Ethan nodded. Most people never see it. That sentence raises another question immediately. If most people never see it, then why has Noah seen it? See what? The thing watching Black Hollow. Noah felt every muscle in his body tense. The thing, not the person. The thing. And that's a very deliberate choice of words. Ethan isn't describing a human being. He's describing something else. He didn't like that wording. Not at all. Outside, something struck the side of the building. A sharp metallic sound. Both of them turned immediately. The noise didn't repeat, but the feeling remained. This is a good example of tension. The sound itself lasts only a moment, but the fear stays much longer. Or something was out there. Noah stood up. What was that? Ethan rose more slowly. His eyes remained fixed on the darkness beyond the window. Notice the difference in their reactions. Noah reacts quickly. Ethan reacts carefully. I don't know. That answer worried Noah, because Ethan usually seemed certain. When confident people start saying, I don't know, it means the situation is changing. And that's exactly why Noah becomes more concerned here. A second sound came, closer this time. A scrape, like something dragging across wood. Noah's heartbeat quickened. The sound lasted only a moment, then stopped. Now, scrape is the rough sound created when one object rubs against another surface. Silence returned, but it felt different now. Heavier, more threatening. Sometimes nothing changes physically, yet the atmosphere changes completely. Ethan crossed the room, slowly, carefully. He moved one of the curtains aside and looked outside. Noah watched him, waiting. The waiting itself creates tension. We know Ethan sees something, but we don't know what. Ethan didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink. Then he let the curtain fall. We need to leave. 3 simple words, but they instantly raised the danger level of the story. Noah stared at him. What? We need to leave. Now. Noah's stomach dropped. What did you see? For the first time since meeting him, Ethan looked genuinely alarmed. And that's significant because Ethan has been calm throughout almost everything. I saw someone standing in the road. Noah frowned. So? Ethan shook his head. There shouldn't be anyone out there. A cold feeling spread through Noah's chest. Maybe it's someone from town. No. The answer came immediately. Too immediately. No one comes here, and when somebody answers that quickly, it often means they're absolutely certain. The room felt smaller. The air felt colder. Outside, the wind continued to move through Black Hollow. Somewhere in the darkness, unseen by either of them, a figure stood perfectly still in the middle of the road, watching the building, waiting. And for reasons neither Noah nor Ethan fully understood, it seemed to be waiting for Noah. Neither of them spoke. For several seconds, the only sound in the room was the wind pressing against the old walls. Noah couldn't stop staring at Ethan, because there was something unsettling about seeing a calm person become afraid. Now think about that for a moment. If someone is nervous all the time, their fear doesn't surprise us. But when someone who has stayed calm through impossible situations suddenly looks worried, we immediately pay attention. We need to go, Ethan said again. This time his voice was firmer. Not louder, just firmer. And that's an important difference. You don't always need to raise your voice to sound serious. Sometimes certainty is more powerful than volume. Noah hesitated. Part of him wanted to stay. Part of him wanted answers. But another part wanted to get as far away from Black Hollow as possible. And this is a very human reaction. People often feel pulled in 2 directions at once. Curiosity on one side and fear on the other. Ethan grabbed the folder from the table. Then he quickly placed several loose papers inside. His movements were efficient, practiced, as if he had done this before. That detail matters. When somebody reacts smoothly during a crisis, it usually means they've experienced something similar in the past. Noah stood. His legs felt strangely weak. The exhaustion from the day was finally catching up with him. He was completely worn out. Now let's talk about worn out. If you're worn out, you're extremely tired. Not just physically, but sometimes mentally as well. After a stressful day, people often say, I'm worn out, meaning they have very little energy left. Ethan moved toward the door. "Stay close," Noah nodded. Neither of them seemed eager to look outside. And honestly, that's understandable. Sometimes the fear of seeing something is worse than the thing itself. Ethan opened the door slowly. The night air rushed inside, cold, sharp, silent. The road beyond the building stretched into darkness. No movement, no figure, nothing. For the first time in several minutes, Noah felt a small sense of relief. Now relief is the pleasant feeling you experience when something bad doesn't happen, or when danger appears to be gone. Notice I said appears, because sometimes relief arrives too early. "Maybe it left," Noah whispered. Ethan didn't answer. He simply scanned the road. The trees, the shadows, everything. And that tells us something important. Ethan isn't convinced. After nearly a minute, he finally stepped outside. Noah followed. The gravel crunched beneath their shoes. The sound seemed unusually loud in the silence. When places are very quiet, even small noises feel amplified. They began walking away from the abandoned structure. The town remained dark. Most houses had no lights visible from the windows. Black Hollow felt less like a town now and more like a memory, something frozen in time. And that's a powerful image. A town is usually associated with life and activity, but Black Hollow often feels suspended between past and present. Noah glanced behind him. The building was already disappearing into the darkness. For some reason, that bothered him. Because despite everything, it started to feel like a refuge. Now remember that word refuge from the previous chapter. A refuge is a place of safety. And it's interesting because the building frightened Noah at first, but now it feels safer than the town itself. They walked in silence for several minutes. Eventually Noah spoke. "You still haven't explained what that thing is." Ethan kept walking. His eyes remained fixed ahead. "Notice something here." Noah says that thing instead of that person. Without realizing it, he's already accepted Ethan's description. "I can't explain it explicitly," Ethan said. Noah frowned. "Why not?" Now, explicitly means clearly and directly, without hiding the meaning. If you explain something explicitly, you leave very little room for confusion. Ethan sighed. "Because I don't fully understand it myself." That answer surprised Noah. For the first time, Ethan sounded uncertain. And uncertainty changes people. It makes them seem more human. They turned onto a narrow street. The wind pushed scattered leaves across the pavement. The sound reminded Noah of whispered conversations, a ridiculous comparison. Yet he couldn't shake it. Fear has a way of changing how we interpret ordinary things. Ahead of them stood an old church. Its stone walls looked weathered. Its windows were dark. Its bell tower rose above the rooftops. Ethan slowed his pace. "We'll stop here." Noah stared at the building. "A church?" Ethan nodded. "It's safer than most places." And that's another interesting detail. In many stories, churches symbolize protection, sanctuary, or safety. The front doors opened with a low creak. The sound echoed through the empty interior. Rows of wooden benches stretched toward the altar. Dust floated through the air. The place looked neglected but not abandoned. There's a subtle difference there. Something neglected hasn't been cared for properly. Something abandoned has been completely left behind. Noah stepped inside. The atmosphere felt different immediately. Quieter, calmer, almost sheltered. Now sheltered means protected from outside conditions or dangers. A sheltered place makes people feel separated from whatever is happening beyond its walls. For the first time that night, Noah felt his shoulders relax slightly, not completely. just enough to notice. Sometimes safety arrives gradually rather than all at once. Ethan sat on one of the benches. His posture suddenly looked older, more tired, as if he had been carrying years of exhaustion. Noah sat across from him. The silence returned. Finally, Noah asked the question that had been bothering him most. "How long have you been here?" Ethan looked down. For a moment, Noah wondered if he wouldn't answer. Then Ethan spoke. "A long time." Noah rolled his eyes slightly. "That's not an answer." And honestly, Noah has a point. Vague answers become frustrating after a while. Ethan actually smiled, a small one, the first genuine smile Noah had seen. Then it disappeared. "I arrived when I was 17. Noah blinked. "You don't look much older than that now." The smile vanished completely, and suddenly the atmosphere changed. Ethan looked toward the dark stained glass windows. "When you're here long enough," he said quietly, "time stops behaving normally." The words settled heavily between them. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. Then Noah noticed something. A photograph sitting on a nearby bench. Old, faded, almost hidden beneath a layer of dust. He picked it up. Several people stood together in the image, all smiling, all looking directly at the camera. One face immediately caught Noah's attention. Ethan, much younger, but unmistakably Ethan. "What is this?" Ethan looked at the photograph. His expression darkened. For several seconds he simply stared. Then he answered, "My family." Noah's eyes moved across the image. There were 6 people. Parents, children, a normal family. At least they appeared normal. Then he noticed something written on the back. Most of the ink had faded, but a few words remained visible. The Henderson family. 1948. Noah froze. His eyes returned to Ethan. Slowly, carefully. 1948? Ethan nodded once. Silently. Noah felt his heart begin to pound. That wasn't possible. Not even close. Ethan couldn't be from 1948. The conclusion appeared instantly in Noah's mind. Either the photograph was fake, or Ethan was telling the truth. Now, conclusion means a decision or judgment you reach after considering information. It's the result of your thinking process. Noah looked down again, at the photograph, at the date, at the smiling faces. Most of them were probably deceased by now. Now, deceased is a more formal word for dead. You'll often see it in official documents, reports, or announcements. The realization hit him harder than he expected. If Ethan really came from 1948, then Black Hollow wasn't just strange, it was impossible. And somewhere outside the church, hidden within the darkness of the town, something was still watching, waiting, patient, as though it already knew the conclusion Noah was beginning to reach. The church remained silent. Noah sat motionless, staring at the photograph in his hands. The number refused to make sense. He looked at Ethan again, then back at the photograph, then at Ethan. Again, trying to find some detail he had missed, some explanation, some clue, anything. But there wasn't one. The face in the photograph was Ethan. There was no doubt about it. This opening shows Noah struggling to accept something that logically shouldn't be possible. Sometimes our minds reject information even when the evidence is directly in front of us. Notice how he keeps looking back and forth between Ethan and the photograph. He's searching for a mistake. "You're serious?" The words came out quietly, almost unwillingly. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He simply looked at the rows of empty benches stretching through the church. Finally, he nodded. Yes. When somebody answers with a simple yes instead of a long explanation, it often makes the situation feel more real. Ethan isn't trying to convince Noah. He's simply stating what he believes is true. Noah laughed once, a short, nervous laugh. Not because anything was funny, because he didn't know what else to do. If you're expecting me to believe that, you're going to have to explain a lot more. Ethan looked down. That's fair. A nervous laugh is very common when people feel uncomfortable, shocked, or overwhelmed. It's not happiness. It's often the brain trying to deal with stress. Outside, the wind rattled one of the stained glass windows. The sound echoed softly through the building. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The church suddenly felt very old, older than before, as if the walls themselves were listening. This creates atmosphere. The church isn't actually changing, but Noah's perception of it is. When we learn disturbing information, our surroundings can suddenly feel different. When I first arrived here, Ethan said, I thought I was dreaming. Noah remained silent, listening. I kept telling myself none of it was real. And, Ethan smiled faintly, and eventually I ran out of ways to explain it. Notice that phrase, ran out of ways to explain it. It means Ethan kept searching for logical explanations until there were none left. Noah lowered the photograph. What happened? Ethan leaned back against the bench, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, as if he had told this story many times before and never enjoyed telling it. This suggests painful memories. People often avoid discussing experiences that still affect them emotionally. I was 17. My family and I were driving home. It was late, rainy. The roads were nearly empty. Noah listened carefully. The story felt ordinary so far, normal, which somehow made it more unsettling. Sometimes ordinary beginnings make strange stories feel more believable. Ethan's story doesn't start with anything supernatural. It starts like a normal family journey. We took a road we'd never used before. A shortcut, Ethan laughed quietly. At least that's what we thought it was. A shortcut is a quicker route to a destination. In stories, taking an unfamiliar shortcut often symbolizes stepping into danger without realizing it. Noah's stomach tightened. He already knew where this story was heading. Not exactly, but enough. This is intuition. Noah doesn't know the details yet, but he senses that something terrible is coming. We drove for nearly an hour. The road should have ended. It didn't. We should have reached the next town. We never did. The repetition here creates tension. Notice how Ethan compares what should have happened with what actually happened. The church felt colder. Noah wasn't sure if it was his imagination or the story itself. Fear can influence perception. Sometimes when we're anxious, a place genuinely feels colder or darker. The rain got heavier. The road got darker. And eventually we saw a sign. Ethan paused. His expression changed. Only slightly. But enough. Small changes in expression often reveal emotions more effectively than dramatic reactions. What did it say? Noah asked. Ethan looked directly at him. Welcome to Black Hollow. The words settled heavily between them. Noah looked away, suddenly uncomfortable, because Ethan's story sounded disturbingly familiar. Now Noah realizes that Ethan's arrival in Black Hollow mirrors his own experience. That connection makes the story much more personal. Then what happened? Ethan exhaled slowly. My parents disappeared. Noah stared at him. What? The shock here comes from how direct the answer is. Ethan doesn't build suspense. He simply says it. We arrived. We stopped the car. My father stepped out. My mother followed. And then Ethan stopped. The silence lasted several seconds. Noah didn't interrupt. Something about Ethan's face told him not to. Silence can sometimes communicate more emotion than words.
And then they were gone.
Noah frowned. Gone where? Ethan shook his head. I don't know. This is often more frightening than having an answer. Mystery leaves the imagination free to create possibilities. The answer was somehow worse. Not knowing felt more frightening than death, more frightening than an accident, more frightening than almost anything. Humans naturally want explanations. Unanswered questions can feel more disturbing than difficult truths.
They just vanished? Yes.
Noah looked down at the photograph, at the smiling family, at the people standing beside Ethan, people who had once been real, people who had once been alive. The photograph transforms from a simple picture into evidence of loss. Did you ever find them? The question sounded small, fragile. Ethan's eyes remained fixed on the far wall. No. A fragile question is one that feels emotionally delicate, almost difficult to ask. Noah immediately regretted asking, because he already knew what that answer meant. Years, decades, a lifetime of searching, and nothing. This tells us how long Ethan has carried this burden. The wind outside grew stronger. A low whistle moved around the church, almost like a voice. Almost. Writers often use environmental sounds to increase tension without introducing immediate danger. Ethan suddenly sat forward, his expression sharpening, his attention shifting toward the entrance. Noah noticed immediately. What is it? People often notice sudden changes in body language before they understand the reason behind them. Ethan didn't answer. He was listening, carefully, intently. Noah listened too. At first, he heard nothing. Then, a sound, very faint. Footsteps. Faint means very quiet or difficult to hear. The noise echoed somewhere beyond the church doors. Slow, measured, unhurried. One step, then another, then another. Measured means controlled and deliberate. Whoever is walking isn't rushing. Noah's heartbeat quickened. The footsteps didn't sound random. They sounded deliberate, like someone who already knew exactly where they were going. That's what makes the footsteps frightening. The person or thing seems confident. The church fell silent again. The footsteps stopped. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. The sudden stop creates suspense because now they're waiting for what comes next. Then came a single knock. 3 slow taps against the front door. Knock, knock, knock. The repetition makes the sound feel intentional and unsettling. Noah felt every muscle in his body tighten. Nobody should have known they were here. Nobody. This is where fear becomes personal. The danger isn't random anymore. Ethan slowly stood. His face had gone pale, far paler than Noah had ever seen. When somebody goes pale, the color leaves their face, often because of fear or shock. Another 3 knocks echoed through the church. Patient, calm, almost polite, but somehow that made them worse, much worse. A calm threat is often scarier than an aggressive one because it feels confident, because whoever stood outside wasn't trying to break in. They weren't trying to force the door. They were waiting for someone to answer. This suggests control. Whatever is outside doesn't seem worried or hurried. Ethan took a slow step backward, then another. His eyes never left the entrance. Noah. His voice was barely above a whisper. Body language often reveals fear before words do. What? Ethan swallowed. For the first time since meeting him, he sounded genuinely frightened. Do not open that door. This is significant because Ethan has remained calm throughout most of the story. A long silence followed. Then from the other side of the church entrance, a voice spoke. Before you go, remember this. You do not need to understand every single word to improve your English. Focus on understanding the general meaning first. Let the story guide you. The more you listen, the more naturally new words and expressions will start to feel familiar. If you heard words that were new today, that's a good thing. It means you're learning. Try listening to the chapter again. Pay attention to the explanations and notice how much easier it feels the second time. English isn't something you master in a day. It's something you build little by little, one story, one sentence, and one new word at a time. Thank you for spending some time learning with me today. Keep listening, keep reading, keep practicing, and most importantly, don't be afraid of making mistakes. I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye for now.